Thank you for joining us. And before we get started with today's video, if you guys like what you're seeing and hearing from the Locked On Senators podcast, go ahead and hit like, smash the subscribe button so you can be the first to know about Sens content. Now, we're going to be doing a ton of these prospect profiles, so if you agree this is someone the Sens should look at or steer clear, leave your comment below so we can hear from you. Now, we got 64 of these, so let's get into it.
All right, Pillsy, here we go on the draft rankings, coming in at number 24 with an average rank of 29, a big Manitoba boy, Owen Pickering from the Swift Current Broncos.
And big is certainly right, Ross. At 6'4", he is a towering defenseman, but he hit a massive growth spurt, so he still hasn't added kind of the muscle to fill out that frame. I got him listed at 179 pounds. He is a left shot defenseman playing with the Swift Current Broncos. In 62 games last year, he had 9 goals, 24 assists, good for 33 points. And as Ross is pulling the graphic up here on YouTube, yeah, cousins with Denton Matejchuk is an interesting note too, Ross. And Cam Robinson's article, since we're mentioning family notes, I just want to throw this in quickly. His dad, Owen Pickering's dad, set the record for most PIMs by a goalie in Junior C.
No way.
What an absolute record to have. That's like the Happy Gilmore, like, yeah, I've set a couple records. I tried to stab a guy with my skate once. Like, that's Owen Pickering's dad is like, yeah, as a goalie in Junior C, I got more PIMs than anyone else. Suck on that.
That is an unbelievable stat to pull out there.
Yeah.
And hey, people are impressed with Owen Pickering's game. I'll tell you right off the bat, he's a fantastic skater. Otherwise, elite prospects would not have him at 15th on their board. Craig Button has him at 19th. Tony Ferrari has him at 21. Corey Prodman has him at 24. Chris Peters has him at 35. Bob McKenzie at 36. And Pillsy, we're going to get some quotes from Scott Wheeler because he's got him all the way down at 53. So what would have been a range from 15 to 36 now becomes a range. Pillsy, I will guarantee you this. He will go somewhere between 15 and 53. I guarantee it.
That is a bold guarantee. We'll see we'll see how that goes. But Ross, if you're asking me, I would put him a lot closer to 15 than I would 53. There are a lot of things I like about Owen Pickering's game. Now, he has major offenseman vibes. Like when I was watching highlights of him, it's just what he's able to do in the offensive zone is very impressive. Like he uses a strong wrist shot. Like he uses that big frame and he really puts a lot of power into his wrist shot and loads it up. Like he needs a second or two and some time and space to get that wrist shot off because he puts a lot into it and he likes to glide in and load up that wrist shot. And what I found really interesting about Owen Pickering that not a lot of defensemen do is he's able to find himself slipping unwatched past defenders when he goes in for a pinch. Like, you know, when a defenseman goes in for a pinch, usually it's just knock the puck in a little farther past the forward on the wall. Maybe if it's a loose puck, go for it, but then wait for help to come and then get back to your post, right? And that's fine. That's proper defending. That's a good pinch. What Pickering does is when he is finished poking that puck and the teams are expecting him to go back to his post, he just hangs out for a little bit. And then he waits for the play to develop. Okay, play's developing. Everyone forgets about him. He's now just snuck behind all the other opponents. He's sitting backdoor at the side of the net waiting, and he's wide open. And if teammates have the awareness to notice him, it's an easy goal. Like, I must have counted 4 or 5 highlights, Ross, where he does that. And sure, it's risky because if you don't trust your forward to cover your pinch, then you look terrible sitting at the front of the net while the other team goes back in transition on a 3-on-1 against your poor other defenseman. But when it works, it's an incredible play because no one is covering him and everyone is puck watching. So that's one thing I really found interesting about Owen Pickering.
And everything that opens up offensively out of his game comes from his skating. Long strides, able to look effortless out there. And that's huge because like we saw with Lamoureux and to a lesser extent, a couple other guys on this list, as you're growing so fast into these enormous frames, it's hard to keep your coordination the same way. You mentioned it yourself. He's gone through an enormous growth spurt. We talk about all these other guys being like top 5, top 10 picks into the WHL, the OHL. This guy was a 9th round selection into the WHL. So the amount of strides, pardon the pun, great skater, but he's taken since getting to Swift Current has been unbelievable. He was named one of the top 3 players for Canada at the World Under 18. So he's clearly taken on this leadership role wherever he goes. And it's unfortunate that Swift Current was such an average team. I think I'm being a little friendly when I'm saying that.
Below average, probably.
So put him on the Edmonton Oil Kings, who have continued their dominance throughout this postseason. And I think you're looking at a player who has really confirmed his stock as a top 15 pick. I was watching the Elite Prospects draft meetings that are on YouTube. Great tool to watch there. And Mitch Brown says he believes an NHL team will pick him within the top 10. So we say the range is 15 to 53. I just pulled up my notes there. Mitch Brown says, don't be surprised if he is a top 10 pick in this National Hockey League draft because he is so raw and his like mold, there's so much to like. You have that combination, and maybe Sens fans are sitting there like, great skater, huge, but not a whole lot of point production. Like, are you looking at Ben Roger? No, this guy is completely like he's able to manipulate the way he comes out and breaks out of the zone. Like he doesn't take the same route every time. Like when I'm watching this guy, and how many of these goal highlights start with him shaking one defenseman inside his own zone and then boom, quick up ice pass. So to me, I'm seeing elite hockey IQ along with this raw frame that you can just, this putty that you'll be able to just bring in to whatever you need to do. But at the same time, Cam Robinson called his game mature. And I think that's what he's talking about, is that in his decision-making on the ice, he always knows not only what the next play is going to be, but 2 or 3 after that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are down on his point production, Ross, but I don't know, 33 points isn't that bad for a defenseman, especially a defenseman on a bad team, right? Like he finished the season a -29. So I think that can tell you what the situation was in Swift Current there. And he was playing.
I can tell you the exact situation. They won 26 out of 68 games.
Yeah, so not a lot of help for him, and I thought he did a decent job in the spot he was put in, and it's so fun. Like he plays like a 6 foot, 180 pound defenseman. Like he doesn't know or can't comprehend how big he is. That's how much of a growth spurt he has. Like he doesn't play a big physical game. He skates like a smaller defenseman. He plays a more offensive role. He's not a guy out there that's boxing out guys or winning puck battles in the corner. Like give him some time. Like you said, there's so much raw talent there. Give him some time to figure out this frame, and you're going to have an offensive defenseman with size. And that is something that you don't always see. And he's a good skater even now. So give him more time to understand his body. Now he's going to have to learn how to skate with that big frame with more muscle on it, which is going to change things for him. But I'm a believer in Pickering here. And I think once he figures out how to fully put it all together, I think there's a lot of potential here. Now, top 10, that's probably pushing it, but definitely, I wouldn't be surprised. Like he's going to be a first rounder in my mind, I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the 20s somewhere, because this is a guy that could really jumpstart your D-core prospect wise.
100%. Now Corey Pronman, who's doing player comparables, he has Travis Sanheim here, who took a little while to get going after having some pedigree coming out of junior, but he's established himself now as a top 4 defenseman. Now let's get to Scott Wheeler, right? Because it's always fun hearing what the one outlier has to say, and in this case, that's Wheeler, having him down at 53. He says the offensive production doesn't jump out at you, but his long, effortless skating does. He's one of the smoothest gliders in the draft. There's still some work to do in terms of the elements to his unremarkable game inside the offensive zone, but he's productive on a low-scoring team. Point shot is hard. I wouldn't balk on taking him in the 30s, but his ceiling is as more of a complementary defenseman at the next level, and it leaves him lower than most. So he sees him more as a guy that you pair with a great defenseman, not one that can become one himself.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I wonder what, like, even with those comments, Ross, like all the way down at 53.
I'll put it on the notes. We'll ask him.
Yeah, it's pretty low. So I'd be interested to hear why he didn't just go like early second round, like 35 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it just seems that's such a drop off here compared to everyone else.
And it's so funny because the next prospect we're going to do in a couple minutes,
Scott's way high on. Yeah.
way high on. So irony there is pretty prevalent. So let's take a look at his statistical profile here when we get back to Owen Pickering, as I can pull up here. But what I love about him too is I just think that he's a guy. Yeah, sure, he'll probably take a couple years, I think, to get going. But once he gets there, I'm so confident that he's the type of defenseman where, because you're not relying on the point totals, once he gets to the NHL level, he'll be the type of guy who you're not going to have to worry about too much. Like, I think that the skating is going to help translate into an NHLer quicker than maybe some realize. He's also one of the older players in the draft, January 27th, 2004, as we mentioned, from St. Adolphe in Manitoba. Grew up playing as well for the Eastman Selects, a little bit of the Rink Hockey Academy here in Winnipeg. And then he got to play all the games in the bubble last year, and he did okay, I think. But you can certainly see this year, he was a little more confident with the puck, moving it, and then 2 points in 4 games with Team Canada at the under 18. So I'm pretty impressed with him. I'm giving him 3.5 stars. I think it would be a solid complimentary piece. Again, if the Senators trade back, I think 7 would be a little too rich for my blood. But at the same time, I see what the fuss is about. I see the raw tools. I see the potential for an extremely high ceiling. I definitely see it more than Scott Wheeler in the little while that I was watching film and then listening to the Elite Prospects guys. But again, I got to tone it down because the Elite Prospects guys are higher on him than anybody else. So somewhere in the mushy middle is in all likelihood where he ends up. But again, I could see, just based on the frame and the fact that his rise has been so progressive over the last 2-3 seasons, that a team could be like, okay, if that trajectory keeps on going, this could be a real good player. So 3.5 stars for me.
Yeah, and I think if you put Pickering on a better team, like you mentioned, he's probably getting 50 points. And then we're not talking about the point totals being so down. So I'm not really looking at that and being like, I didn't get many points, I'm going to knock him down a couple pegs. That's not really a thing for me. And I just think his ability to use that wrist shot, his ability to sneak past defenders, and he can make a really good first pass. He can make cross-ice passes in the offensive zone. Like, I'm on a different page than Wheeler. I think he is great in the offensive zone. So that's definitely something we're going to make note of to chat with Wheeler about, because it's very interesting there. I got him at 4 stars, Ross, and I don't know how the Sens would get in a spot where they could select him. So that's why I didn't give him 4.5 or even higher. But I just think this would be a great option for your first defenseman drafted of this draft. Like that, I would be very happy with that. So 4 stars for me.